What is going on, IK fam? We are going to be blasting out to a galaxy far, far away today. Really excited because there's so much to unpack in this video, and I'm really happy that we're going to take time to give you a timeline, right? So this is going to be our S36 update or latest update video where we're really going to walk everyone through kind of what has happened, what is happening, what are some of the next steps that are going to be taking place, and then I'm just going to give you my opinion and review on how I kind of think everything has gone so far / went. So let me start off in the beginning when as far as how our group came to be in S36. Right, a lot of y'all know that have been watching my videos for a while talking about S36. Right, we started out as a jumper project, and let me preface and really hit this point home is that, right, keep in mind, if you're someone who's played Kingdom Builders for a while, you know that just starting a brand new account on a server does not lend you a high level of guarantee of there being any percentage chance of that server stabilizing or just having a deterrent there to keep it from destabilizing and just turning into the kind of default lawlessness that we usually see them as. Right, for the most part. Now, keep in mind, right, that's really the point of a jump project. It's you're going in with an organized group, a structure, a body of policies, a communication network set up, players, officers, and leaders that are just already on the same page about a lot of things in the server, so you can have a higher chance of unifying from day one, and you bring more alliances into the fold because you already have a quality preset structure in place, right? So these are things that are and can be an extreme benefit to new servers. Otherwise, you're really leaving it up to the individual alliance leaders there to communicate with one another, find out what commonalities or similarities they have as far as for finding common ground. And it's usually more difficult because you're then having to work with, the top 25 to 30 alliances, and if no one knows each other, then you're just hoping, you're praying that some of them, if not a lot of them, think the same, right? Or they'll have a similar way that they view the server developing, right? So you can find some form of common ground. That's why it's difficult, because you're trying to combine 20 to 50 players, right, from those top alliances in hopes that everyone can agree on things. It's a lot easier when you take away that margin of error by coming in with an organized group, because you already will have 4 to 6 to 8 to 10, 12 alliance leads that already think the same way because you've already kind of pre-screened people, right? So that's the TLDR short version. Now let me talk about how everything started. So when we got into S36, honestly, it was fantastic. So much potential in the beginning, and we established ourselves. We had certain areas on the map that we were going to. We were able to land there pretty flawlessly with the 8 alliances that we came in with. Everyone kind of got their starting level 1 cities, then progressed to level 2, right? I think we had about 22 alliances out of the potential 23 for the level 1 cities that were able to cap a level 1, so the distribution was fantastic. Again, we came in with the mindset of we didn't want to take everything. We wanted to share equally with as many active alliances as possible, and we were able to really efficiently do that. Then we ended up, contacting leads. I want to say on day 1, going to day 2 and day 3, we had everyone, I think, within the top 100 alliances already contacted. We had invited leaders and officers into the server Discord. Then we started reaching out to just more players and districts, right, promoting it just prior to getting server mail. And then, right, we were getting a lot. I think we had maybe like 150, 200 people that joined the server, just our S36 Kingdom Discord, just within... God, I almost feel like the first week and a half. It was really amazing to see how many people were coming in to get good information on the server and to engage in topics and conversation and get be able to hear announcements, join in on our voice calls and our weekly town halls. Right, again, it was really going well. And then we get to about the first week in the server, and that's when we started seeing some alliances pop up that you've heard me mention before. Ones like Kip, G.A. Roy, right? These were alliances that wanted to just basically do nothing but PvP. Now that is a simplified version because from their perspective, it was more of they just wanted to play the game as is, right? And though there's nothing wrong with playing the game as is, that is a viable option. The challenge is that typically players and groups that believe that are usually ones that do not have a lot of experience or knowledge in kingdom builders to know what the effects of those decisions are going to cause in your server, right? And as most of us, or I should say any of us who have played in servers or kingdoms for a year plus, right? If you've been in kingdom builders where you've played through multiple SVSs and KVKs, right? You've seen kingdoms develop and servers develop over a period of time. You know that, civil wars and just having constant PvP and fighting is a turnoff. I know one of the servers I reference a lot is Server 5, right? Now, they're a great server if you want to go out and just do nothing but PvP. Go join that server. But they're down to about 100 players when they started with about 30 to 40,000, right? That initially joined when that server opened before they then opened up S6. And so when you get down to about, don't get me wrong, there's more than 100 players active there. But as far as the core PvP fighters that are just doing nothing, because that's all they do, right, is fight, it's around 100. And so, you basically killed off your activity base by doing that. And the likelihood of you getting people to migrate to a full PvP server is rather unlikely. You're not going to hear large groups that are wanting to go there more often than not. It's a very low percentage chance. So just keep that in mind as I continue talking because it's good to hold that in the back of your head. So we then get to the point where we have figured out, these are the alliances that want to do that. And we start getting early reports that these alliances just want to do nothing but wage war. They wanted to shut the server. We got some reports that some players in GA were actually from S5 and S8 and possibly a few others that just wanted to come to the server to basically disrupt and destroy the server and the players' gaming experiences under the guise and kind of pseudo excuse, if you will, or at least I don't know if I should say excuse, but the pseudo reasoning of wanting to just ruin me or my group's efforts in the server to, be a beacon of hope for players in the kind of volatility that usually is on average experienced in kingdom builders. And so after we got that information, right, we then started banding together. We started getting a lot of support from other alliances because they saw that we were sharing with them. We were providing them resources, pre-drafted alliance mail templates. I mean, so much more than that we were giving to these alliances. And we had about 35, I want to say 30 to 35 of the top 50 alliances that were in the server as far as with representation via a leader. And then in addition, some of their officers even joined and some players as well. So things were going great in that regard. And we were really excited to see how things were going to keep panning out. So then we end up getting to, I would say, about week 2. And at this point, it's pretty much just nonstop, right? It's pretty much just constant PvP, right? We're, marking players now in these alliances. We have blacklist channels set up. We have in-game group chats for cords set up, right? Because we know that, their intention at this point is to just cause harm to the majority players' experience, right, in the server. Right, and then we ended up getting reports that some of the players, as far as leads and some of the officers there, were just going to leave the server whenever they kind of finished having their fun, right, whenever they had accomplished their goal of, quote-unquote, kind of ruining or disrupting the server. And so it was unfortunate, and then, I guess at least just to hear that. And then you fast forward a little bit, and, right, again, now you're kind of getting to about week 3, right, there's still a lot of coordination and unification, and again, we're constantly denying, right, you ended up having Kip and Roy basically going from 3 alliances to 2, down to 1, right, to where it was just GA, and we were just constantly denying them cities, right, we were controlling who would win COR, so that way we could have their faction place last, we were limiting how well they were able to do in City Siege event, in the Supreme Alliance event, right, and we were really just restricting a lot of their access, right, they didn't have any gold cities until just recently, so the entire time, with the exception of having it, I think, one city, a level 5 capital for a couple days, but for the most part, right, they were pretty much denied a lot of gold, and right, so there was a lot of joint efforts and contributions that we were doing as a whole together, which was fantastic to see a server work so well in unison. And we were even getting a lot of contribution and support from alliances outside of the family. Again, because, you know, for us, it didn't really matter if you were family or not, right? We initially came in with the intent of wanting to be allies with everyone just by default. Now, you ended up getting to, like I said, week 3, and around this stage is when you have, this is when you had kind of the first ripple based on how GA was at this extreme low point. It got to a point where they were really low on, they were getting lower on activity. They were not taking cities as often, right? They had just lost 2 big fights that I'm sure some people might have seen on YouTube, for anyone or people that have watched some of the other videos from players that have posted on the Video Creator channel and IK Discord, where you were able to see some of those fights on the back-to-backs where we kind of did these 2 big capital city sieges. And if it wasn't just for a slight improvement that needed to be made after the first siege, right, we would have taken the level 5 capital effortlessly on the first day that we did. But I mean, it was an awesome fight. It was so cool to watch and to see. And then we ended up going again against G on the cap and ended up taking it. And now, after this happened, this is when you started getting into this low point. After the low point was there for a couple days, there were 2 big things that started to recently happen. One was that you had some players who, some players around like low to mid spenders who ended up leaving some of the top alliances within the Syndicate family and went to go and join GA. Right? Keep in mind, they were so close to being basically taking that next tier level of pressure and hit to where it really would have kept it up, right? We had a second person that just ended up rising on the boards. His name's KLR, right? And he was the number 2 true power guy right below Fram, right? So now we had 2 people that were above Nightmare, who was previously the number 1 in GA as far as true power goes, right? And because they were on different time zones, they were able to just constantly keep attacking nonstop and putting pressure. So, again, the high point was amazing. I mean, you would almost think to yourself that because of how well everything was going, that it was just close to ending and getting to that next point. And so from there, you then ended up having KLR, who was the number 2 troop power, along with a few other people that were in the top 50 and top 100, who ended up going over to GA. And I'm sure, as most people can probably figure out at this point, right, when you're dimming the light at the end of the tunnel, and you have a few people that come over to boost at your activity, especially if they're high on the power, that gives you somewhat of a resurgence of will, right? It kind of remotivates you in some regard. And from that, we ended up seeing a resurgence in activity because of that, and then we ended up seeing a little bit more activity just across the board from them, a little more actions, quicker actions were being taken in some regard as well. And then, right, the fight kind of just went back to the full force, right, when it really could have just been a stomping ground and ended right there, and then it just would have been us able to go back to just managing the server and supporting the players and alliances here in the best ways that we would have loved to fully implement. Now, at this point, after the activity boosts back up, we're now at about, what, week 3.5, you know, slowly getting into week 4, and you then have one of the Syndicate family alliances, which was MYST, now known as, I think, MYT, ended up, or I'm sorry, let me back up even a little bit there. So GA kind of took this approach where they would just go around and bullying and threatening people. And you ended up seeing this happening from, again, quite a few of players that, and this is from leaders and officers and players that we ended up getting, screenshots sent to us as far as how they went about going around and talking to players and messaging them. And so, you know, like here's an example that I'll give you. Let me see if I can just switch over here real quick. And because, again, there's quite a few, but I just want to limit some things here as far as what. Okay, cool. So let's do this. So let me switch over to this screen, and I'm just going to give you a few examples here, right, that you'll be able to see. So, like the lead in GA, his name's Altair, right? So here you can see, right, is your alliance neutral, right? Are you supporting the syndicates? Please tell the truth. We don't support anyone. We are neutral, right? This is an alliance. I believe this is LKD at the time, right? They had been a neutral alliance, right, and just leveling and progressing their players, right? And they had not caused anyone any problems, right? They were just enjoying being able to develop their accounts and playing a game while they learned. Then you end up having next one. He's like, yeah, I'm a subscriber. Hang on, let's see here. Yeah, okay. So sorry, let me go back to the first one. Right, so we don't support anyone. He's like, then why are you in the Syndicate Discord? So the moment you see a question like that, you can tell that, I mean, again, they probably had people that were in the server chat section, which, again, we granted access to a lot of people because we weren't trying to limit the majority, really just the troublemakers. And so when you see a question like that asked, right, it's almost like now it's becoming an interrogation. And then you see he's like, I'm a subscriber of Boss. Did they promise to give you a city? No. Again, they were lower on the rankings list, right, because we were focusing on the kind of top 23 alliances at the time. He says, does your leader know you are in their Discord? Right? Now you can see he's like really taking it to the next level here. Like really it's starting to become almost, like this passive-aggressive interrogation, right? That's continuing. And he's like, yeah, we have no deal like that. Yes, he's like, are you discussing some projects with them? He's like, not till now. He's like, so you support their Jumper project? Depends. I suggest if you support their Jumper project, move to their Alliance OS or BSS and leave LKD. He's like, I'm not against or support it. Then you see, then leave their Discord. Right now he's actually commanding, right, threatening. He's like, then leave their Discord. He's like, they brainwash people that were in jail, allies, and balance. He's like, no, they don't worry. Again, someone that's completely unrelated, right, not a part of our group, but they read World Chat, right? They're familiar with the announcements we put out, right? They probably listen to our town halls, so they know better. He's like, then we'll put LKD on our hit list, right? So now the threats are starting to come out, right? We'll put them on our hit list from now as you admit that you are in Syndicate Discord and trying to conspire with them. He never said anything about conspiring. This is where the confusion is starting to come in, right, with the lies and the manipulation. I never said I did conspire with them, right? And then he's like, by the way, you are just acting like bandits. I love how he kind of countered it and called them out. He says, leave LKD. I already talked to your leader about being neutral. Just because I'm in their server didn't mean I work with them. You said it yourself. You follow Nasty. When technically he specifically just said he likes watching the content on YouTube. He says, he's like, I'll follow his guy, not him. He's like, join OSS, BSS. LKD won't be another collateral damage in our war. So again, right, you're just acting, he's like, you're just acting childish. I follow multiple YouTubers. And then, yeah, man. So he says, he's like, you understand we're at war. He's like, you're putting LKD in danger. So again, I'm sure you can get the gist, right? It gets worse as you go farther down the list. But I just wanted to show that to give an example because this is exactly what GA was doing, right? So their players with their lead and or others were going around to leaders in S36 and officers and some players, and they were threatening people. So they were going around and doing this, right? And again, it got worse. It got more aggressive in some of the later screenshots. We shared this with everyone on the S36 Discord that had access to that. So you had other leaders and officers and players all saw that. This was a public post on our S36 announcement channel. So you're seeing firsthand, right, that these players are just extremely vindictive and, right, just taking a complete bullying approach. And don't get me wrong, right, the morality and the integrity part of it aside, right, there's no rules or anything that says that you have to abide by what they say, right? Words are just words at the end of the day, as far as, whether or not you decide to listen or you give them any value or any meaning. And, you'll see later that in the screenshots, right, that this player from LKD got bullied. Like, he ended up saying he left the Discord because he just didn't want any problems. He had DM'd me and messaged me about the situation and was kind enough to share some screenshots with me as well. So it was really unfortunate to see that. I mean, you got to think about that, right? You have arguably, the only rogue alliance, right, that may or may not eventually become the top alliance, that's going around and bullying and threatening leaders verbally, not only in world chat, but is doing it in private messages. And they're doing that to more or less all the top active alliances. And then they're taking it the next step further and tracking down people on Discord, like going through the members list to see what names match up or however they might do it. And then they're private messaging people on Discord and doing the same level of threats. It's wild. Like, I'll tell you, in my 4 to 5 years of playing Kingdom Builders, with as many projects as I've ran and as many kingdoms as I've played in, I have never seen anyone, go to that level of just utter, immorality, right, and just extreme lack of integrity. And I mean, really, if my channel wasn't more PG and kid friendly, right, there might be some very interesting dictionary words that I would probably throw out, but it's just sad. I don't know really kind of how else to put it. It's super scummy. It's super suspect. It's in my opinion, it's just not the right way to go about playing these types of games. There are other ways to more or less, if you want to be a rogue alliance, or if you want to have a fight or civil wars, right, you can do so in a respectable way that allows for your integrity to still be intact. And again, some people will feel that way. Some other people will just give the comment of, it's a war game, they can do whatever they want, right? It's just another tactic, another psychological warfare, which that is true as well. And I think on the other end of it, right, if we're just playing devil's advocate, this player didn't have to leave, right? They could have just stopped talking and not responded to Altair, just like the other leaders could have done the exact same thing, right? They could have just not responded or blocked and muted and never even saw any of these messages from him at all whatsoever, and they just could have went on about their day. That's another viable option. But I just wanted to provide some context there to show you kind of how things started to build up, because this is what happened. And then because this was happening and they were going around and doing this, you end up seeing a lot of the alliances on the leaderboards that were starting to go neutral, right? So it started with some of these right here around kind of the top 20, top 25 that started going neutral. More and more up the ladder started going neutral, until eventually you ended up having the first kind of big alliance go neutral, which is MYST, right now later known as MYT. And then after that, you ended up having IS, now formerly known as IS, now RG, ended up being the latest alliance, which was the number one alliance within Syndicate that ended up going neutral, right? So this happened, I want to say, a couple days ago. Now you fast forward to kind of where the server is currently, which is that all of these people went neutral, right? And right now you're kind of left with 4 Syndicate alliances, right? Which is Desi, right, BSS, and Phoenix, well, now Phoenix, but was PHXS, and then OS, which I think we're 13 now. So, right, you ended up having just these 4, right? So then we figured, okay, we need to have a game plan as far as to address the situation, because now it's a lot less about, do we constantly fight? Do we, try to make it to like a 90-day mark to bring in players for migration to keep up that way? Or do we just take a step back and look at the health of the server, right? Do we really look at how can we help support the players, right? Not necessarily GA or any of the others, as far as other rogue players or rogue alliances, right? But how can we still help the players here so they can have a good gaming experience, right? So their experience in Infinity Kingdom isn't ruined because of what one alliance has basically done since arguably day one, when the server opened. And so now it's about, okay, what are we going to do from here, right? That was when we got together and we decided, okay, well, if they're really just here for me, super easy solution, right? I'll just go ahead and I'll just step down from my fictitious role, if you will, and we'll let everyone know that, hey, the remaining Syndicate alliances will just go neutral, and then from there, right, now the ball is kind of back in GA's court to see how they're going to respond, right? Do they have a plan? Are they organized? Do they have policies set up? Do they have server goals set up, right? How are they going to do city distribution? How are they going to set up a communication network? How are they, and even more importantly, right, these are just some questions that they still have to answer, which they haven't yet, and I imagine they're probably working on it, and I'm sure the easy way out to buy them some time would probably just be to piggyback off of the foundation that I had set up already. Now, then the next big one is, how are you going to build the trust back when there have been so many times where lies were told, manipulation was told? I mean, I didn't even explain to people how there were a minimum of 3 diplomacy talks that we attempted to have with them. There was the first one where Altair, I think, had initially reached out, and then we ended up getting a screenshot that was sent to us from their Alliance chat that they were just buying time. Like, they had removed, I think, Nightmare, previously his name was Top Assassin, and they had removed him from the Alliance, and they said, oh yeah, no, we just removed him, right, just to buy some time, and they told everyone to keep focusing and leveling up. Once they hit like T3 or some later level, they were going to go back to war, right? So again, we got wind of that really quick. Thankfully, there was a lot of amazing people in S36, as there still are, that were kind enough to share information because they really did believe in what we were trying to build in the server. And they knew that we really cared, right? And I'm sure a lot of people knew how much time, just myself alone, right, put in to the month's prep of the Jump project, right? Everything we set up there to everything we were looking forward to doing once we actually were in S36, right, without any problems, right, to really show the players in the alliances how much we could really do for them, right, how amazing of a server we could really have built. But anyways, right, so you have all of these things happening, and so you had the first diplomacy opportunity that was basically slapped in our face. Second opportunity was from another player, Jutu, who ended up joining. He tried to reach out, and then it was a matter of, okay, yeah, we'll talk diplomacy, we're happy to, and then it was them just kind of us getting shut down again. And then after that, there was a third instance of, right, they reached out, they wanted to try and talk diplomacy, and then you fast forward to, or excuse me, this is now the third instance, right, where you had a player leave their alliance, which is, well, I guess that's more of a side point. Let me just skip to the official number 3, which is that then there was another opportunity of them, I think, of Altair reaching out. We were trying to schedule a meeting as far as to talk on voice. I had reached out. I said, hey, can we do this time? He responded with, no, unfortunately, that time doesn't work for me. I said, no problem. Let's reschedule. Do any of these times work for you? If not, let me know. I never heard back. So again, right, there was at least 3 opportunities for diplomacy that were basically just, like they just slapped our hand away. And even though, keep in mind what's the interesting thing is that even though we knew what they wanted to do, or even though we knew their ill intentions, right, that they were just coming here to do nothing but fighting, we still extended the hand multiple times. But again, which is always kind of thrown back in our face. So now you're at this point currently where, again, GA has to answer a lot of questions. And the biggest one is, how are you going to build loyalty, right? How can any player, alliance, officer, lead, trust you after everything you've done, right, from day one, where you've attacked any and all alliances, even though you claimed you were only going to attack syndicates, but you ended up attacking a lot of neutral alliances that we have reports on. People don't forget, right? Sure, they might be able to move on for the sake of progressing their account. But when you end up ruling a server based on fear and, dictatorship, your server's never going to be healthy. And you're going to end up losing more players in the long run because of that. And so it's almost like, even though GA was able to, based on, well, and this is the interesting thing too as well, it's not like they had enough power to act. It's not like they overpowered our group. It was more of a few players that decided to go neutral, that self-imploded, and it just basically made it so we had lost more activity and power for players that would still be actively fighting. And it was kind of just the default choice that needed to be made. It wasn't anything that, it really wasn't as far as GA having the amount of power to win, because we had already proved time and time again that, we were able to just effortlessly outpower them and take cities and still restrict and limit them in many ways. But again, it was more internal, right? It was, in my opinion, I think it really came down to, just an inexperience in the leads that we had from MYT and from formerly IS, where they kind of just succumbed to the peer pressure, right? They ended up mentioning there was quite a few players in their alliances that, either just didn't want to fight anymore, they wanted to open up PvP to be server-wide, and, it really, I think it really showed, right? I think sometimes age plays a factor into it, at least in my experience, for what I've seen. Out of the, 6 or 7 projects I've ran, I've only ever had what I would consider to be, a quality, like a very experienced R6 that was a teenager. My buddy Panda. So if you're watching this, Panda, shout out to you. which isn't to be misconstrued with another panda that we have or that we have in S36, but one of my old OG buddies from another game I played. And again, so I mean, it's possible, it can happen. That's one of the reasons why I'm always open to taking chances on players, because again, if they have a good application, if they interview well, right, then I'm totally happy to do that. But the challenge is that, right, there's also, it's kind of like the double-edged sword, right? You're willing to give someone a chance, but you also recognize that, right, they don't necessarily have as much experience as other leads do. They have enough to kind of get in, and you feel good about it, right? I would never pick a lead to lead an alliance in a project that I'm organizing that I don't feel good about. But the one thing that you can never account for is their actions, right? How are they going to deal with the pressure, right? Have they played Kingdom Builders long enough? Have they been in a server long enough? Have they even been in a war server or just in a PvP fighting server that meets any level of small to large levels of resistance, right? How do they cope with that? How do they deal with that, right? That's how you really kind of distinguish the experienced players from the inexperienced players, right? It's the people who fold early rather than the people who persevere because they know the light, where the light is at the end of the tunnel. And what's interesting is we explained this to everyone, right? We came out and we told players, right, it's a matter of just holding on strong. Let's wait until migration hits. We're going to be able to bring in so much power, players that are around 200k troop power that are just going to be enjoying and relishing in the opportunity to just hit G8 players all day, every day, and really turn the tide to probably get some of those neutral alliances that are kind of playing the Switzerland game, where they'll just end up siding with kind of the biggest group, right? A chance for them to come back around. And again, sometimes I think, some players, I think in MYT and in IS's case, right, it was a little bit of impatience. Again, it was a little bit of inexperience. Probably not knowing what the actual true capabilities are of migration and how impactful those things are. Right, it also depends if these people have actually had, kingdom management level experience before, if they've led alliances in other games, right? How did they perform? I mean, all of these things are kind of unknown for the most part, right? Unless you're really willing to go and do deep background checks on people, like go and download games they've played and make accounts on those servers and contact those leads and those officers, which you could. And I think in hindsight, putting that level of work into it could be one of those things that just decreases the unforced errors, if you will. But now we kind of summarize from everything, and if you're still here listening to this at 32 minutes, I applaud you. Again, it is one of those things where the way that S36 was initially developing to where it is now, right, just had so much potential in the beginning, and I still think that S36 has some potential. I think it has less potential than S8 did when I had transitioned from there, at least where it currently stands. But I would say, again, it just depends on how things are going to go. If anything, I just really wanted to make this video to provide kind of a big update, give some good context, some timeline, some history, some examples, because these are things that if you're a player on another server, you might be experiencing. Maybe you have experienced this in other Kingdom Builders. And I think with that, right, with where I'm at now, I'm gonna hopefully keep enjoying playing in S36 on this account. Who knows what's next? We kind of have just been talking a little bit about it. I know some players have expressed interest in possibly doing another project. So who knows? Wink, wink. Maybe we'll post something on our server about that, just depending. But I think the most important thing for me right now is to have a smooth transition, make sure we inform players of the options they have, right? Make sure they have any information, any questions they have that are answered, right? To make sure that players are informed, and then they can make a choice for themselves on what they want to do. So until that happens, right, I'll still be supporting in any level and capacity that I can for S36 before I just transition to a regular player. But outside of that, guys, that's it for me. I would love to hear what you think. Right. Again, I know this is somewhat of a longer video, but there was a lot to unpack, a lot to talk about, a lot to show. Let me know in the comments down below, right, what you think about, any of the situations I explained. Even if you have questions about how to approach situations, would you have done things differently? Even if it's just general feedback, let me know any and everything down in those comments. And that's it for me. So until next time, who knows what's in the future, but, BN, I'm single and free to mingle. Peace.